meet the new boss, same as the old boss, and back to Christian McCaffrey. I know last year was frustrating. He was injured. He played, 3 games, I believe, last year. But when he's healthy and ready to go, there's just no other running back that's going to see the same sort of workload that he does. I mean, this is a guy who's going to be on the field for probably 90 to 95% of the snaps. He's going to get the majority of the touches. That offense is still going to run through him. You can count on, 100 targets or more. So I'm putting the injury concerns aside, and I'm still going with him as my number 1 pick.
Marcus, that's great. It's CMC, pretty obvious there. But earlier this year, I was on your show, Fantasy Football Podcast, and we were chatting up who's going to be the number 1 overall fantasy running back this year. And I said Dalvin Cook, and you actually agreed with me. So I'm going to stand and still say Dalvin Cook. Let's talk about the volume, because in terms of a fantasy running back, that's really what you want to focus on. And the volume is there for Dalvin Cook. Now, I really want to talk about this, the potential for a higher ceiling for him, if you could possibly believe that. Now, in the games he played in 2020, he touched the ball at least 17 times in each game and scored 16 total rushdowns. That was tied for most with Alvin Kamara, but that's just running the ball. The interesting thing here about Dalvin Cook and his ceiling is what happens once he gets red zone targets. Over the last 2 seasons, he's had just shy of 100 receptions for nearly 900 yards, but only 1 receiving touchdowns. Now, I understand the Vikings, they got Justin Jefferson, they've got Adam Thielen. They have these threats on the receiving side of the ball, but once you get some red zone targets for Dalvin Cook and he has both rushing and receiving touchdowns, that's a fantasy MVP and number 1 for me.
No, you want to talk about a fantasy MVP and number 1, Kimi, I'm going to take one thing off of your pick, and that's the D off of his name, because I'm going with Alvin, the number 1 scorer in fantasy in 2020. And I get it. The Taysom threat scares you. And it should when Drew Brees was there. But again, Drew Brees was there. Taysom Hill did start 4 games. Alvin Kamara still scored more than anybody else in the National Football League fantasy-wise. Sean Payton, as much as he loves the idea of full-time Taysom, he's not going to rob Peter to support his personal Paul addiction in 2021. Kamara averaged only 2.5 catches in those Taysom starts, but he's too much of a scoring threat to me to pass on when he's healthy. So to me, it's still Alvin Kamara no matter what.